Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Just here to give you an update on the A4 project. I had intentions of doing multiple videos showing all the different steps, but I got lazy and didn't do any of them. So here it is, it's done. Thought I'd go over some of the key points on this, talk about some of the mods and the paint process. I had a lot of questions online about what I did for the paint process. So I'm going to go over some of that, what materials I used, etc. So while we're on top here, we'll go over some of the changes that I made. Almost every part of this airplane has been touched or modified in one way or another. So let's start at the back, I guess. So I'm actually running a smaller tailpipe than stock. See, I got the in-runner motor. So it's like a, I forget what size it is. I think it's 62 millimeter diameter. A little bit smaller than stock. You can see the difference. So this model's already been flown before I did all the paint work, so I flew it with this whole setup. And then I modified the underneath side of the exhaust here to be more like the real one. So I did that. The Blue Angel airplanes are called Super F models because they're highly modified and they have a lot of different things on them than other F models. One of them is the parachute pod, so it's a little parachute pod. It's a little smaller than scale, but the reason I did that was because the exhaust is kind of too big for scale. So if I did everything, if I made this to the same scale as this, it would look kind of huge out of place. So it's a little on the small side, but that's alright. So there's the exhaust. Tail's mostly unchanged. I did fill in all the areas around the servos and stuff. I really wish I would have done something with that because that is a major eyesore, but oh well, what are you going to do? Let's see, I ended up using Robart hinges because, and I got all the way to the point where I almost had it painted, and then I decided to do this. The stock hinges were kind of floppy, and this airplane is really sensitive on roll, so I didn't need that becoming a problem. So I went ahead and did pin hinges on those. This is actually metal tape. Same with the inlets and the exhaust and all of this. It's difficult to work with and it's easily scuffed. You can see there's kind of some scuff marks on it if you look up close. But yeah, I did all the way up inside, even on that side of the inlet as well. Hard to see, but and you have to excuse my shop. It's an absolute mess. I've done 4 airplanes in a week, and I just finished my son's little Texan, so. Anywho, so let's see, coming up front, did a little antenna here. Now, one of the things that I did on this model that no one's probably noticed yet, and that's no fault to anyone else, I'm just super picky, is I actually changed the profile of the canopy. Stock, with the hump on this airplane, stock, it doesn't look bad. But when you take the hump off, it becomes real obvious that the canopy isn't quite right. So what I ended up doing was I pulled the canopy off, obviously because I redid the whole cockpit. But I basically cut this section off back here and lowered it down, and then lowered the cockpit down so it didn't bump up as much as the stock one. So there's a nice little side profile, a lot better than stock. That's a jet hangar pilot. Obviously they didn't fly routines with their masks on, but oh well. I did make a handmade gauge cluster there and kind of totally modified the whole cockpit area. It's deeper than it used to be now and has a little more depth to it. And everything's covered in cardstock, so it won't bubble up. But honestly, if that bubbles up, you've already got more problems with the rest of the airplane. So yeah, so there's the canopy. I think it looks a lot nicer now than the stock canopy. So then obviously we'll get to this later, but I did gear doors and all other kinds of things. The Blue Angel airplanes don't have the little splitters out here on the slats. I didn't do vortex generators because that would have been a holy nightmare with this finish. So I just left them off. And then of course we have the cranked probe here, which I just used a little like fire starter wand and gently warmed up those spots and then melted them. Did a little bit of body work on them after, so it wasn't too big of a deal. Okay, that's most of the mods for top. Again, these are Cali Graphics. Oh, I wanted to point out that I was going to paint all these on, but these are actually the vinyl decals that Cali gives you. You have to do some pulling around the corners to get them all to work. And I did go in with a brush and paint all of these kind of edges with paint after I put the decals on. The reason I did that was I was afraid that if I masked this blue to shoot the yellow, I was going to pull off paint. And then if that happened, I was going to become extremely upset. So I decided, you know what, let me just use the decals. And they actually didn't turn out too bad. Pretty smooth, you know, decent. So yeah, Cali Graphics did my decals. I did have to have her resize some stuff. The decals she has out of the box aren't exactly scale and size or font, so I had to change a few of them. So if you're interested in doing a Blue Angel A4, let her know that you want the Blue Angel A4 decals that Brent Hex did, and she'll hook you up. So let's get to the paints that I used. Everyone wants to know. Okay, so we have the Rust-Oleum primer, filler sandable. Stuff isn't bad. You can sand it, you can dry sand it a day later pretty well. And then we have Rust-Oleum 2X Navy Blue, which I think is closer to the real color than Model Masters, and then 2X Gloss Clear. So what was the process that it took to get a finish like this on a foam model? I'll tell you, lots of sanding, lots of priming. So start off with a lightweight spackle to fill in all the panel lines and stuff. I got gutsy and filled in all the servo wire troughs and all that stuff, hoping that I never have any problems with servos or my fan system, because I kind of body worked that in too. So you do that first, and then I used, let me get the polyurethane. So then I brushed on 5 coats of this. You can use almost any matte polyurethane. It dries pretty quick, so I did 5 coats thinking that would fill in everything pretty nice, and it really didn't. So then I started doing primer and sanding. So I think I did 7 or 8 times of priming it and sanding it. Prime, let it sit, sand it, prime, let it sit, sand it. And I found that if I sanded off too much primer, I did some test painting along the way to see how far I needed to go. And I found that if I sanded down too far, it would start to show the foam texture again. So I really had to build up a lot of primer to make this smooth. And then I sprayed it with the blue, and I did 2 coats of blue, and then I water sanded the blue paint with 600 grit. Not all the way, just to get some dust out of it, get some of the texture out of it. Then I went to the clear. First I put the decals on, and then I did 2 coats of clear. I water sanded that real light with some 600, and then did 2 more coats. So a lot of paint. You might be wondering, how much weight did that add? Honestly, less than I was expecting. Only added about 1.25 pounds. So it kind of sounds like a lot, but it's really not. This is a big model for a 80mm, and it's almost as big as the old jet hanger A4. So as it sits with a 6250, it weighs 7 3/4 pounds, which really isn't that bad. And honestly, these things fly really floaty stock, so I'm really not worried about the weight. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the top. Let's flip it over and let me show you what I got going on the bottom of the airplane. Okay, so on the bottom, let's go over some of the changes I did. You can see the parachute pod. I did do a actuated hook because dirty inverted passes aren't any good without the hook hanging out, obviously. And then the flaps come with like a I don't know, like a ribbed texture inside. The real ones are smooth, so I just glued some Mylar to those ribs, painted them. Let's see, you can see the exhaust looks a lot nicer in stock. You'll notice there's no more cheater hole. Went over that, I think, on the first video. Basically, use Depron foam to cover up the hole, and Depron foam on the inside where the ducting's at so that the ducting has a nice smooth transition. So I did that. I did quite a bit of work up on the front. I wanted the drag link, so this is the drag link off of my F18 that I set up in here. This really isn't scaled, it should be all white, but this has to slide, so I couldn't paint it. This is a manually operated gear door, so it's sprung open with a piano wire that it's like a torsion spring that I have set up in here. Basically, you take the pins out of the hinges, and then you run. Here's part of the wire right there. So that's part of the torsion spring. So basically, it holds the door open. This hook, which took a while to get set up properly, is grabbed by the nose gear, and it pulls it closed. It works pretty well once it's all set up. So this unit right here is actually one of the main units, just modified. So the nose unit on these is kind of small and dinky for a model this size and weight, especially with the long strut. And it was having a hard time swinging the long strut and closing the door. So what I did was I took one of because I have a bunch of these units that are broke because of that Corsair over there. I used the same ones in that Corsair, and it kept shearing these pins off. So what I did was I actually just ground off on the plastic all this stuff that makes this gear rotate, and because the pin's broken out of it, I pretty much just turned it into a nose gear. So you can kind of see it. And then I modified, I had to re-drill the arm so it fit the larger pin. But it's just a much more solid unit. And I also put a plywood stop at the back of this, so that way it wouldn't just shear off the pins if I had a bad landing. So this is actually a structural member of the nose gear now. It keeps it from going too far back. So you're wondering, what is this nose strut? Where did I get that? Well, the strut, the main portion of the strut is, I think I got it from Hobby King a long time ago. Honestly, I don't have links or any information on where you can get one. But basically, on this side, might be able to see it better. Basically what I did was I removed the fork that was on, it was a main gear strut. I took the fork off of it. Then this is the stock A4 nose fork, and I drilled this out. Let's see if you can get a focus here. I drilled out the top of this, used the pin that comes with it, and then I cut the little arm that comes on your stock A4 nose gear to where you can see it in there, kind of where it butts up against this shaft. And then this is just fiberglass toe wrapped around it to keep it from rotating back. So it's kind of simple. From a few feet, looks like an A4 nose gear. I'm not getting real specific with this stuff. And while we're talking about struts, these main struts are actually Freewing Eurofighter struts, which I'm not sure if you can buy those anymore. I bought these a long time ago, and I've used them on a few different models. These ones are getting a little worn out, so I need to figure out where I can find some new ones. They're getting a little sloppy in tow. But that's most of the gear mods. These wheels are actually really cool. If you ever see a real A4, they have a very large wheel and a very small tire. And for me, when a model's sitting on the ground, it's got to look right. And the landing gear and the wheels and the tires are part of the look. So these wheels are, and they're really skinny. The real ones are really skinny tires. So these tires are actually Dynam Corsair tires that came off my kid's Corsair. And although they don't look like this, they're much larger when you get them. So let's see if I got something I can use to demonstrate. But I basically ground these down on my belt sander. Let me grab a wheel here. So basically what you do here is you have a wheel that's mounted in a strut. Obviously this one's not. You get the belt going. You get the belt to turn the tire. You don't sand it on the belt. You get it moving with the belt. And then with one hand you're holding the strut and you're spinning the wheel, and with the other hand you're using a piece of sandpaper or a file, and you can grind these down, reshape them. I use an X-Acto knife to put grooves in them. So I did that with my MiG-29 tires, because they have those stupid X patterns on them, and that's like a World War II thing, not a jet thing, because I think those wheels are originally for their Spitfires. So I ground off the X pattern and then put grooves in them so they look a little better. So that's why I made these wheels. And actually the nose wheel I made the same way. I think that's a stock nose wheel. I just turned it down just a little bit. It's kind of big stock. So, but yeah, that's it for the landing gear. I made I guess I didn't cover that either. So I made all new gear pods out of fiberglass. Basically what I did was I just did I taped up the stock ones and then used those as a mold and laid up a big thing of fiberglass and then trimmed them out, glued them down, cut the doors out of them. These are also sprung. They're sprung open, but these have sprung hinges. They don't really spring out that great, but they go out far enough. And then the main doors are servo actuated, so that's really ugly in here. I wish my wheel wells looked nicer, but they really don't. Kind of embarrassed. But basically I have a servo right here with a ball link out here, and when this door closes, you see a little pin on here. This door catches that pin and pulls the door closed, so that way I don't have 4 servos just for the main gear doors. So it is kind of a pain, because if you forget your switch is in the wrong place when you turn it on, it could damage and pop a hinge off. I've already done it a couple of times. So anyways, that's pretty much it. Let me show you guys these gear moving real quick. Here's the gear in motion. Watch that nose gear close. It's kind of neat. And then the main doors close. Everything's closed up. Works pretty good. Put the flaps up. Nice and clean. I'm curious to see if it's any faster with the doors, because as you know with the stock ones, these are kind of big open caverns in here, and I don't know, it's got to be some kind of drag. So here's the hook. I have a ground setting so I can put it down to where it drags on the ground if I want to. And then I have the full tactical inverted pass position. So yep, that's how she works. Pretty sweet. So alright guys, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section, and I'll try to answer the questions as best possible. I think I covered most of it, so hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot of work. Just know if you want to finish like this, plan on spending 100, 200, I don't know, a lot of hours modifying and painting and sanding and priming and sanding. And this garage was just, I mean, I got dust on everything, and obviously it's a huge mess because I've just been going all out trying to get all this stuff done. But there's dust everywhere, man. My models are filthy, just covered in overspray and primer dust, sanding dust, and everything else. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get some in-flight pictures and video tomorrow. We're going to the lake bed, so gonna do some flying. All right, we'll see you later. Oh.